Story 1. I woke up the first night because of the sound. It wasn't knocking. It wasn't creaking. It was footsteps, slow, measured steps pacing back and forth directly above my bed. I froze. No one was supposed to live above me. My apartment was on the top floor. At first, I tried to explain it away. Maybe old pipes, maybe the wind, maybe the building settling. But the rhythm was too human, too careful. Someone was walking, heel to toe, again and again in the apartment that wasn't supposed to exist. The next morning, half in doubt, half in fear, I went straight to the landlord. "Who's living upstairs?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He frowned. "Upstairs?" "Yes, the flat above me." He gave me a strange look and shook his head. "There is no one above you. That part of the building was sealed years ago. No entry, no tenants." I stared at him, searching for a smile, a joke, anything. But he was serious. That night, the footsteps came again. Louder, more deliberate, pacing, then stopping. I lay in the dark, covers pulled to my chin, ears straining. Then, the steps trailed across the ceiling, reached my bedroom door, and halted. The silence was worse than the sound. It felt like someone was waiting, just beyond the thin layer of plaster, listening back. Days passed. I told myself not to think about it, not to fuel my own fear. But the footsteps returned every night, always starting around midnight, always ending right at my door. On the fourth night, I tried something different. I whispered into the darkness, "Who are you?" My voice trembled. My mouth was dry. Silence. Then 3 sharp knocks against the ceiling. Knock, knock, knock. I jumped back from my bed like the floor had burned me. I stopped sleeping. My eyes turned heavy, purple shadows growing beneath them. Coffee became my lifeline. My coworkers noticed, asked if I was sick. I lied and said I had trouble adjusting to the new place. One evening, I convinced myself to prove it. I pushed a chair against the wall, climbed up, and put my ear to the ceiling. At first, nothing. Then, faint but clear, the sound of breathing, shallow, uneven, right above me. I stumbled down, nearly falling. I packed a small bag with essentials, ready to leave. But when I grabbed the front door handle, I froze. The metal was ice cold, frost crawling along its surface, even though it was the middle of summer. Something didn't want me to leave. On the 7th night, exhaustion finally dragged me into a fitful sleep. I woke to a sound worse than anything so far. The footsteps weren't above anymore. They were in my hallway. I sat up slowly, barely able to breathe. The sound drew nearer, heavy steps moving toward my bedroom. The door handle rattled like something was testing it. I whispered, "Please go away." The handle stopped, and then, from the other side, came a whisper that chilled me to my bones. "But you're the one who let me in." I hadn't spoken to anyone. I hadn't invited anything. But somehow my fear, my attention, had been enough. I realized I'd fed it by listening, by talking, by believing. Desperate, I fled to the landlord's apartment downstairs, banging on his door at 3 a.m. He answered, bleary-eyed. I told him everything, the steps, the knocks, the whispers. His face paled as he listened. Finally, he said, "I warned the workers never to open that unit, but one of them, he must have done it. Years ago, a man died up there. No one found him for months. When they finally discovered the body, he'd worn a path in the floorboards, pacing back and forth, as if waiting for someone to let him out. I begged him to come upstairs with me, to see, to prove I wasn't losing my mind. He hesitated, then agreed. We climbed together. He unlocked a rusted service door leading into the sealed space above. The air hit us first, foul, damp, thick with mold. The flashlight beam cut through dust and cobwebs, revealing a bare room with collapsed furniture. And on the floor, worn deep into the rotting wood, was a path of footsteps. Back and forth, exactly above where my bed would be. As we looked, a sound rose behind us. My blood froze. Footsteps, but not mine, not his. They were circling us. I don't remember much after that. The landlord swore he felt a hand brush against his shoulder, but when he turned, no one was there. I remember the whisper again, closer this time, almost in my ear. "You believe in me now." We fled the apartment. I never went back to collect my things. The landlord promised to board it up again, but his eyes told me he wasn't sure it would matter. Now, weeks later, I live in another building, far away. But sometimes, in the dead of night when the world is quiet, I hear them again. Footsteps, measured, patient. Getting closer. Story 2. The smell came first. It wasn't subtle, not something you could ignore. It clawed its way into my nose the moment I walked into the apartment one evening after work. Sharp, rancid, like spoiled meat soaked in chemicals. And the worst part? It wasn't coming from the trash, or the sink, or the fridge. No matter how obsessively I cleaned, the stench only grew stronger. At first I thought something had died inside the walls. A rat maybe, or a raccoon. I scrubbed floors, poured bleach down drains, opened windows, lit candles until my home looked more like a church vigil than an apartment. But the stink sank into everything. My clothes smelled of it, my hair carried it, my skin seemed coated with invisible rot. I complained to the landlord. He promised to send maintenance. For 2 days, nobody came. On the third night, when I could barely breathe without gagging, I marched downstairs and demanded someone fix it. The workers arrived the following morning, masks on, tools in hand. The landlord supervised with a pinched nose, muttering something about old pipes. I watched as they tapped along my walls, listening for hollows, sniffing like bloodhounds. One of them paused in the corner of my living room, his face tightening. "It's here," he said. They began cutting into the wall with saws, plaster dust coating the air. The sound was rough, jagged, like teeth grinding bone. When the first square piece came loose, the smell erupted outward, so strong that one of the workers ripped off his mask and vomited into a bucket. I gagged, covering my face, watching as they widened the hole. Behind the wall wasn't insulation or pipework. It was a door, a wooden door, hidden inside the wall itself, sealed shut with layers of plaster and paint. "It's not supposed to be here," one muttered, horrified. The landlord went pale. He whispered almost to himself, "That entire section was bricked off decades ago." That's when the smell pulsed outward again, not just foul but damp, like something alive. They pried the door open with crowbars. The hinges screeched like an animal crying out. When the gap widened, darkness spilled out, a thick, heavy black that seemed deeper than the space should allow. And then I saw it. The hidden room. It was small and low-ceilinged, stuffed wall-to-wall with personal belongings, all long decayed. A cracked vanity mirror reflecting distorted shadows, stacks of moldy clothing folded as if still waiting to be worn. A rocking chair with cushions crawling with insects. But what struck me the most was how everything was arranged deliberately, like someone still lived there. I stepped closer, gagging, unable to stop myself. The landlord barked at me to stay back, but I couldn't. I needed to see. That's when I noticed it. In the farthest corner, beneath a heap of yellowed blankets, something shifted. Just a twitch at first, so small I thought it was a trick of the darkness. Then it moved again. Jerky, unnatural. "Something's in there." My voice came out a whisper. The workers froze. The landlord muttered for them to close it off immediately. But before they could, the blanket slid aside with a slow dragging sound. And I saw it. At first, I thought it was a person, horribly withered, skin stretched tight like wax paper over brittle bones. Its eyes were milky, unblinking, yet alive. Its mouth sagged open, releasing a wet rasp that filled the air with a sound worse than the smell. but it wasn't just a person. The longer I looked, the more wrong it became. Its hands were too long, fingers bent sideways like broken branches. Its spine hunched at an impossible angle, head twitching on its neck as though trying to turn fully around. What terrified me most wasn't how it looked. It was the recognition. Among the rotting belongings, in a cracked picture frame, I saw a photo of a smiling young woman. The creature's face matched hers. The landlord swore under his breath. His hands shook as he told the workers to board it back up. "Now, seal it!" he shouted, voice cracking. But the thing moved faster than anyone could react. With a sound like tearing fabric, it crawled forward, dragging itself through the doorway on elbows too sharp to be human. The stench became unbearable, a living wall of decay. The workers screamed, dropping tools. One bolted, another stumbled and gagged. And then those milky eyes locked onto me. It made a noise, a guttural choking that almost sounded like words. I staggered back, tripping over the coffee table. My vision blurred with tears, bile burning my throat. "Close it! Close it now!" the landlord shrieked. He and the remaining worker shoved the door back, hammering boards across it even as the thing clawed and slammed from the other side. Each bang shook the wall until the plaster cracked. I pressed myself into a corner, hands over my ears, trying not to scream. Finally, silence. The landlord told me to leave. He didn't threaten. He begged. "Get out now, don't come back." I packed what I could carry and ran. Never asked for my deposit back. Never looked behind me. But here's the problem. It doesn't matter where I go. Last night, in this new apartment, I smelled it again. Faint, under the floorboards. Familiar. Waiting. And I think it's closer now. Story 3. I wish I could say it started with a power failure, or with some strange noise in the elevator. But no, it began like any other ride home. Late in the evening, grocery bags dangling from my hands. The old elevator in my building always groaned, always shook. I was used to that. What I wasn't used to was the doors opening to a place that didn't exist. It was supposed to be the 5th floor where I lived. Instead, the doors slid apart with a sigh and revealed a hallway I had never seen before. The lights overhead buzzed dimly, spaced far apart, leaving long stretches of shadow. The air smelled faintly metallic, like blood and rust. I stepped out by instinct, thinking maybe I pressed the wrong button, until the sight of the doors stopped me. Every apartment on that floor had a door covered in strange markings, not numbers, not letters, just scratches, spirals, and jagged scrawls that looked carved by fingernails. Some doors vibrated softly, as if someone was pacing behind them. Others leaked soft sounds, muffled cries, whispered phrases in languages I didn't know. I froze. My mouth dried out instantly. This wasn't my building, but it had to be. Where else could the elevator have taken me? The doors began sliding shut behind me. Panic surged and I lunged back in, jabbing the 5 button, then L for lobby, then every button on the panel with pounding fingers. The elevator shuddered, groaned, then started moving. Relief flooded me. Until the doors opened again. This time, the elevator led to my apartment, or at least something pretending to be my apartment. At first glance, everything looked the same. My couch, my bookshelves, the rug with the coffee stain in the corner. But the longer I stared, the more wrong it all felt. The shelves stretched too high. Books spiraled impossibly upward into dark ceilings. My kitchen counters seemed to tilt downward at strange angles, water dripping against gravity into the sink. The smell was off too, a sour, moldy odor that made my stomach clench. I stepped forward without realizing it, a moth drawn to the glow of something dangerous. My groceries were still in my hands, plastic handles cutting into my palms, but I couldn't drop them. Not yet. Not until I saw what waited deeper inside. A noise drifted from the bedroom. My bedroom. But it didn't sound human. It was a faint, dragging shuffle, followed by something wet, like lips smacking together in slow hunger. I backed into the elevator, heart pounding, slammed the close button over and over until the doors lurched shut. My breath shuddered out of me in little bursts. I told myself it was a hallucination, a dream caused by exhaustion. But the elevator didn't agree. It kept moving, up, down, sideways, who knows where, spitting me out at floors that never should have existed. On the 16th try, the doors opened to a corridor flooded ankle-deep in water. Dark, rippling water with bits of hair floating on the surface. On the 10th, I saw a hallway with doors all slightly ajar, each hiding dozens of eyes peeking out at me through the cracks. The whispering was so loud, I thought my skull might split. And once, the worst one, the elevator opened to reveal myself. Me, sitting cross-legged on the floor, staring into the dark. My double tilted its head, smiled faintly, then slowly raised one hand to wave. Its skin sagged, soft and loose, like something hollow wearing me as a suit. I never ran back into the elevator so fast in my life. By now, I should have left the building for good. I should have sworn never to step foot inside that cursed machine again. But the problem is this: the stairs don't work anymore. I don't mean they're broken. I mean they don't lead anywhere. They twist and turn and drop me back into the lobby again, no matter how many floors I climb. The elevator is the only way up, the only way down, the only way out. Last night, I tried again. Grocery bags forgotten, sanity slipping like sand through my fingers, I pressed the button to go to the lobby. Just the lobby. Just the normal lobby. The elevator jolted, lights flickering overhead. Then the machinery groaned, as if straining against something heavy, sticky. When the doors opened, I saw my apartment again, but this time all the furniture was gone, stripped down to bare walls and a single chair in the center. Sitting in that chair was another version of me, not hollow, not smiling, just waiting, its eyes locked on mine as if it had been expecting me all along. It leaned forward and whispered, soft but clear, "Stay. This is your real home now." I slammed the door shut. I don't know what floor I'm on anymore. The numbers blink nonsense on the screen. My reflection in the elevator's steel panel lags behind my movements, its mouth opening just a second later than mine. I am afraid one of these times, when the doors finally reopen, it won't close again. And whatever is waiting beyond, whatever versions of me or not me are watching, I won't have the choice to run anymore. Story 4. I was the last one to admit it out loud. At first, I thought my mind was just playing tricks on me, the way exhaustion sometimes folds strange dreams into reality. But after 3 nights in a row, and after hearing the same fear whispered in hushed voices around the building, I had to face it. We were all dreaming the same thing. It always began the same way. I would wake in the dream, hearing the sound of glass sliding open. My balcony door, a draft of cold air would brush against my skin, carrying with it the scent of smoke and damp ash. And then they would appear. Figures, shadow-like, tall, but not solid, like smoke given bones. They drifted in through the balcony, drifting on stiff limbs, whispering nonsense words in voices that weren't voices at all. They were hushed and fast, like radio static, syllables tumbling over each other. I could never understand them, but my bones did. My blood did. Every cell in me screamed, "Stay asleep. Don't move. Don't let them see you awake." But in the dreams, I always moved. I always looked. And they always turned their heads toward me, slowly, in perfect unison, whispering louder. That was when I always jolted awake, heart pounding, sweating, convinced I'd catch them standing there in the real balcony light. I tried telling myself it was stress, that maybe some weird conversation had spread like disease through our minds, a story becoming a group hallucination. But then we started to vanish. It was Mrs. Abraham's on the 12th floor first. She was always loud, always chatting with whoever passed her door. Then one day, silence. Her door was locked, lights off, groceries untouched outside for 3 whole days. The landlord used a spare key, but inside, the apartment was still tidy. Uneaten meals on the counter, bed made, no sign of a struggle. Just one wrong thing, an acrid smell lingering in the air, like something burned but not with fire, like charcoal. Then it was Mira, the teenage girl downstairs. Her parents thought she ran away, but her phone, money, shoes, everything remained. Only the faint black residue smeared near the balcony. Each time, the same story. No blood, no forced door. Just the smell, just emptiness. And each night, more of us had the dream. I stopped going out at night. I closed my blinds, stacked chairs against the balcony door, taped it shut with layers of duct tape. None of it helped. The 4th night, I dreamed again. The voices pressed harder against me this time, not just nonsense, but closer to language, like syllables I almost knew, but couldn't grasp. I woke gasping, ears ringing, the smell of charcoal clinging to my throat. When I stumbled to the balcony, the tape was peeled back. The door cracked slightly open. The chair I had pushed against it was turned neatly to the side. That was the first time I didn't go back to sleep. More and more apartments emptied overnight. My neighbors' faces disappeared from the hallways one by one. A man upstairs, then a couple on 9, then the security guard who usually dozed by the lobby cameras. All gone. The whispers got louder in the dreams. But here was the worst part. When I passed someone in the hall, sometimes I heard them humming the dream's whispers under their breath, unaware they were doing it. Like the figures inside the dream were bleeding out of us, testing our mouths for a fit. I don't think escaping the building matters anymore. They are tied to the place. Maybe to us. Maybe to me. 2 nights ago, I gave up pretending I wasn't curious. When the shadows slid through the balcony, I forced myself to stay very still. Not waking, not screaming, just watching. There were 3 of them. They didn't walk so much as scrape, their heads tilted downward, whispers slithering out of heads that shifted like smoke, and then, one of them leaned close to my ear. I could feel its voice humming beneath my skin. This time, I understood it. Only one word. Soon. I woke with my ears burning, my throat raw, and the room reeking of smoke. Charcoal streaks were smeared across my sheets like fingerprints. Last night, I realized the building was nearly silent. Most of the doors I passed coming home were locked, lights dark, no music, no voices of neighbors cooking or fighting or laughing anymore. I knocked at a friend's apartment down the hall. No answer. The air stank faintly of burned wood. I think I am the only tenant left awake. It's 3:47 a.m. now. I hear the sliding glass behind me, smooth and patient, though I swore I locked it. I smell the smoke, the same as always, heavy and dry, like breathing in ashes. I know if I turn around, I'll see them step onto the floor. I know if I stare too long, I won't wake up this time. And maybe that's what they want. Maybe that's what happened to the others. Slipped from nightmare to nothing, carried away on whispers. I'm writing this because I don't know if anyone will ever read it, but I want someone else to know. Our dreams are open doors. They wait behind the balcony glass. Don't look too long. Don't listen too closely. I can already hear them surrounding me, voices weaving tighter and sharper. Words I can almost recognize now. Almost. I don't think I'll wake this time. Story 5. I thought I understood heat. I thought I knew what it meant to sweat, to toss at night in damp sheets, to peel my shirt off my back during a summer wave. But this was something else. The heat in my apartment was alive. It started on the first evening the city announced the heat wave warning. Everyone else in the building stayed relatively comfortable. Fans humming in their open windows, people leaning out over balconies sipping cold drinks. I should have felt the same. But in my unit, it didn't matter if the windows were thrown open, air conditioning blasting, ice cubes melting in front of a desk fan. The second I stepped inside, it was like the apartment swallowed me whole. The air was thick, dry, and punishing. It wrapped around my skin like hot hands. It burned without fire. The first night, I stripped to nothing but shorts, soaked a towel in cold water, and draped it across my shoulders. Within minutes, it was bone dry. Sweat poured down my chest until my sheets dampened beneath me. Around midnight, I noticed the first scratch. A deep red line dragged across my forearm like I'd brushed against barbed wire. I stared at it in disbelief, running a shaking finger over the sting. My nails weren't sharp enough to do that. I tried to sleep through it, but the air pressed harder, sitting on me like a heavy, suffocating blanket. By morning, the scratch had swollen dark against my pale arm. On the second night, the thermostat mocked me. I kept it set at 17 degrees, but the numbers blinked and danced, climbing higher no matter what buttons I hit. 25, 30, 40. Sweat blurred my vision, my chest rising and falling like I was drowning on dry land. And then, the burning began. It wasn't just the air anymore. It was my skin itself, prickling in sharp waves as if invisible nails were tracing patterns into me. New scratches appeared over my ribs, my thighs, my stomach, thin at first, then deeper, bleeding at the corners. I screamed into the humid air, but it didn't echo. My apartment swallowed the sound, choking it into silence. That night, I slept on the bathroom tiles, curled near the toilet, pressing ice against my face until it melted into nothing. By the third morning, my neighbors noticed. I heard them chatting in the hall as I carried out my garbage, their voices calm, normal. "Feels better with a breeze, doesn't it?" one said to the other. I wanted to punch him. In my apartment, the walls themselves sweated, dripping condensation down onto my couch. And then, with horror, I realized none of them looked baked or burned the way I was. Their clothes were crisp, smiles intact. While I stood there with red-rimmed eyes, skin marked with scratches I couldn't explain, chest covered in angry burns. "Rough night?" one asked. "Yeah," I muttered. "Hot in there." He blinked at me. "It barely reached 24 last night." His words almost made me laugh. 24. If only he could step into my furnace. That evening, I begged the landlord to check the wiring, the vents, anything. He came upstairs, tested the thermostat with his own hands, and looked at me strangely. "It's running fine," he said, wiping his forehead. "Feels cool in here, actually. Maybe you're tired." I wanted to shake him, scream, drag his face into my sweat-soaked pillow. But when I looked at him, I realized he wasn't sweating at all. That night was the worst yet. I stripped naked, lay flat on the floor, and begged the heat to stop. My body was covered in scratches now, hundreds of them, like I'd been dragged through glass. Angry burns, shaped like palms, marked my chest and back, glowing as if fresh from an oven, and then I felt it. Hands, not real, not visible, but hands pressing me into the floor, holding me down. Hot, burning fingers brushing up my neck as though testing me, squeezing, leaving red fingerprints branded on flesh. Whispers hissed in the air, distorted and sharp, though I couldn't make out any words. The temperature rose so high that my vision rippled like I was looking through fire, and then it whispered right into my ear. Not a voice I knew, not a language I understood, but the meaning crawled into me all the same. "You last longer than the others." I woke near dawn, sprawled across the scorched carpet, my skin blistered and raw. My mouth tasted like metal. The smell of charred flesh hung in the air, but nothing was burning. Outside in the hall, I heard doors opening, neighbors laughing, children running to school. The air smelled fresh through the crack beneath my door, but in here, it's still a furnace. The thermometer now reads 48 Torderg. The marks on my body deepen each night as though someone is writing on me in fire. I don't leave anymore. I can't. When I touch the doorknob, It scalds me instantly, branding my palm. My screams vanish against the walls, and I've realized something even worse. I am not just being tested, I am being prepared. For more stories like this, share and subscribe Goofy Horror.